Hi, everyone. It's Mrs. Chow, and I'm going to be walking you through our lesson today on world trade and globalization. Before we delve into the particulars on trade, I want us to refresh our memories on free market economics. In the beginning of the year, we discussed the Enlightenment physiocrat Adam Smith, who introduced the world to laissez faire capitalism. As we see here in this graphic, free markets are all about the ability to make private profits with little to no government intervention, competition making the economic system function more efficiently, and the ability of these free markets to adapt to any set of circumstances. Well, now that we've refreshed our memories, let's discuss world trade. Throughout history, people have bartered or traded one thing for another as needed. Over time, different cultures invented mediums of exchange. These were things people in a culture considered valuable, such as salt, tea, or even seashells. They used these things to pay for trade items being purchased. About 5,000 years ago, people began paying for trade items with money. They first used coins or precious metals, and then paper currency. Currency is defined as the form of money that a country uses. In today's world, trade refers to the buying and selling of a vast range of products and services. Domestic trade is the trading done within a nation or country. International or world trade is trading that occurs among nations or countries. Trading relationships can have significant effects on nations' economies. Sometimes, trade blocs or groups of countries in the same region enter into agreements to take part in trade together. The European Union, also known as the EU, with more than 24 members, is an example of a large trade bloc. Some nations favor a Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement, or TPP, among countries bordering the Pacific Ocean. The main global trade group is the World Trade Organization. The WTO sets rules of trade among the nations of the world. Representatives from the WTO member countries try to ensure that trade flows as smoothly and freely as possible.
Look around you. Chances are you are wearing, holding, or looking at something that's been imported. Very likely your genes and the technology inside your phone come from a foreign country. They are imported goods and services. Trade is part of our lives. It's what makes the world go round. But in today's world, trade is becoming more complex as more and more countries join the global economy. Imagine this complex trading network without common rules. It would be like a busy day on the road without traffic lights. That's where the WTO comes in. Created in 1995, it expands on a system for trade among nations built over 6 decades. But what has the WTO achieved since its creation? The WTO is stability. Its thousands of pages of rules are the traffic signs for exchanges between nations. They help companies operate across borders. Companies know that a country belonging to the WTO will be fair with imports. No big surprises. But where do these rules come from? From our members, the governments that make up the WTO. Together, they negotiate new rules for trade and new space for imported goods and services. Rules are agreed by consensus. You only apply rules once you've agreed upon them with your trading partners. Negotiations sometimes focus on just one sector, and shortly after the WTO's creation, it successfully completed a number of agreements. However, negotiations can also cover a wide variety of different issues. For example, the Doha Development Agenda. Launched in 2001, it seeks to reduce trade barriers and improve rules for trade in goods, services, and more. It also seeks to rebalance the system in favor of developing countries. Reaching an agreement with such wide-ranging implications takes time. In 2008, members got close to a deal in major areas, but there was no consensus on every single topic. So the work continues and the objective remains the same: to update the trading system for the 21st century. to have rules, but if you don't respect them, they're of no use. The WTO helps countries resolve their trade disputes. This helps build a stable trading world. When a country thinks a trading partner is breaking a rule, it can submit a complaint to the dispute system. This WTO innovation has proved very effective. The first step is to talk, and about half the cases are solved out of court. But what if there is no solution? Countries can ask a panel to review their cases and lodge an appeal if they are still not satisfied. Still no resolution? Countries can seek to apply sanctions against those not playing by the rules. Stability. Rules designed by all, applied by all.
Another organization similar to the WTO is the IMF, or International Monetary Fund. So here we are on the IMF's website. What is the IMF? It's an organization of 189 countries. That means that almost every country in the world is a member of the International Monetary Fund. And what are they trying to do? They're working to foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, especially in times of economic crisis, facilitate international trade in a similar way as the World Trade Organization, promote high employment and sustainable economic growth, and reduce poverty around the world. All of these, the EU, the TPP, the WTO, the IMF, and the World Bank, which I hadn't covered, they are all examples of international economic organizations. They tend to coordinate economic activities, specifically trading agreements, with multiple member countries. Another example of an economic organization that has members from multiple countries would include OPEC, or the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, which we previously covered with the oil crisis in the 1970s. Now we're looking here at OPEC's website, and it says here in their mission that their mission is to coordinate and unify the petroleum policies of its member countries. So essentially, they're a group of countries that have come together because they have a lot of oil. And they're trying to work together in order to produce and sell that oil. They want to ensure the stabilization of oil markets. They want regular supply. They want a steady income to producers, as well as a fair return on capital for those who are investing in the petroleum organization. But what kind of an economic organization is OPEC? How would it be classified? Is it a multinational corporation due to its having business activities in multiple countries? Or might you classify OPEC as a cartel due to its goal of maintaining high oil prices and restricting their own competition? Obviously, if it is classified as a cartel, there are significant negative associations with OPEC, but many see it as both an MNC and a cartel. These are all organizations that are functioning on a global scale. They are working with multiple member countries around the world. All of these organizations are benefiting from economic globalization. Economic globalization is the removal of barriers in the flow of products and services, as well as people and ideas among nations, as we see here in this last paragraph. Opponents of globalization say that it takes power from individual countries and benefits big businesses at the expense of workers. We'll talk about economic activities and groups that would be against or counter to globalization in a bit. But others support free trade policies, free trade being defined as trade in which governments do not restrict imports and exports. They argue that such policies benefit everyone by expanding opportunities for consumers, workers, and businesses. One group that has capitalized on economic globalization is the Asian Tigers. Following World War II, many new states came into existence, and in order to promote development, they wanted to take a strong role in guiding economic life. So what is export-oriented economics? It's an economic policy aiming to speed up the industrialization process of a country by exporting goods for which the nation has a comparative advantage. So who's taking advantage of this? As I mentioned before, the Asian Tigers. South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong. These four countries or populations are noted for maintaining exceptionally high growth rates, over 7% per year between the 1960s and the 1990s. So, what does this ultimately do for the Asian tiger populations? It gives them highly developed economies. And here we have a couple of examples. So, South Korea, one of the Asian tigers. Following World War II, the United States invested heavily into South Korea. And the result was that they gained a surplus. They were bringing in money. So they were able to invest in switching from consumption goods to manufactured goods. So, with all of this money, the government had to make some decisions. So, they put a lot of money into ambitious projects in urban infrastructure as well as in education. And today, Korea has one of the highest education levels in the world, and they focus mainly on scientific research and production. This allows them to be one of the top exporters of technological and electronic goods. Another example, Taiwan. In the 1930s and 40s, they were being occupied by Japan, and Japan was exploiting their natural resources. But when World War II is over and Japan is defeated, you have Taiwan being made independent. It was part of the Republic of China at the time. And then later, as Taiwan, the United States went in and subsidized their rice industry. 5 years later, the population already had access to their basic needs, and their economic growth continued. So the government has money. What are they going to do? They put money into massive infrastructure projects, into education, as well as into technology. A third example, Singapore. They gained their sovereignty or their independence from the United Kingdom in 1965. Now, Singapore is important in Asia because of their geographic location. It makes them primely located to be a hub for international commerce and foreign investments. We see them here in the Asian islands, and you see that they are at the tip of Malaysia. Because of their geographic location, ships had to pass through the Singapore Strait and stop at Singapore for any kind of successful trade in Europe and Asia, the Pacific Islands, Americas. Again, that ideal location. Thanks to this, they get a lot of money. What are they going to do with that? They're investing that into infrastructure and education. I think you should start seeing a trend that's happening here with these Asian tiger countries. Now, one thing that's different about Singapore, they had a specific goal. It was to transform the country into having a working population around the docks and in the cities capable of handling the trade traffic. They wanted to make sure that they were prepared to maintain that strategic location and strategic position in international commerce. And our final example is Hong Kong. Now, I'm not sure how many of you know this, but up until 1997, Hong Kong was actually controlled by the United Kingdom. In 1997, the UK returned this territory to the Chinese government. So it became a part of the Communist People's Republic of China. But through negotiations between the United Kingdom and China, agreements were made that allowed Hong Kong to trade with far more liberties and private profit policies than the rest of China. So these Hong Kong traders became a lot wealthier. Now, they're going to take advantage of the coziness they have with some European populations like the British. They start investing into Hong Kong. Hong Kong becomes a strong tourist attraction, and it's bringing in some money. What are they going to do with that money? You guessed it, invest in massive infrastructure, which led to better education. And because of that, Hong Kong was able to see exponential growth in their economics system, as well as made them a center for banking. Now, I mentioned before that we would cover groups that might oppose economic globalization. There are some groups of people that see the countries controlling trade deals and large corporations having controls as inefficient and unsustainable for everyone. These people tend to be concerned about jobs leaving the countryside, forcing people to move in mass numbers to cities. So there are people that are advocating or fighting for the decentralization of economic controls and the creation of localized economic activities that are more sustainable for everyone, as well as are beneficial to the environment. This is something the United Nations has seriously discussed and worked towards over the past few decades. They continue to create new goals like the Millennium Development Goals, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals shown in this graphic. And although the UN is not completely opposed to economic globalization, they are planning for the future generations on our planet through sustainability. In opposition to the international trade organizations I discussed in the beginning of this lesson, such as the WTO, the IMF, and the World Bank, microfinance institutions attempt to create economic opportunities in the small scale. Instead of trying to coordinate the economic activities of countries or large corporations, microfinance institutions offer financial services like small business loans, insurance, deposits, or other business resources. And who are they providing these to? To low income populations that want to become business owners and entrepreneurs. These financial services are supposed to help them get their businesses off the ground and running. Many of the recipients are in developing countries and could otherwise not obtain a traditional loan. Now, a great example of a microfinance institution is the Grameen Bank. Grameen Bank was officially founded in 1983 by Muhammad Yunus in Bangladesh. Yunus, an economics professor, wanted to see if he could decrease rural poverty, or poverty outside of the cities, by designing a way to give credit to the rural poor of his community. This developed into the Grameen Bank, which has grown to over 9.6 million borrowers from similar rural areas. The main goal is to provide loans to individual community members who have ideas for small community businesses. 97% of the borrowers from Grameen are women, as Yunus believes that if Grameen Bank is able to empower women, an entire family will benefit financially. And to top that statistic, Grameen has a repayment rate of their loans of 99.6%. And here's Muhammad Yunus himself to explain how microfinance institutions allows you to take control over your own life.
Professor, I just want to talk about where it all started with you, growing up in Bangladesh, and of course, you recognize the power of microfinancing. Where did that come from?
It came from frustration, extreme poverty, people struggling for a little bit of food, a little bit of survival opportunity, and so on. So I was trying to see if I can make myself useful to one of those people. How I can do that? I felt that teaching economics in the classroom made me useless. I'm not good for anything because those theories that I teach in the classroom doesn't do anything for anybody. So I said, why don't I go out and see if I can be useful to somebody? So that was the beginning. And then one of those many things I did, I was trying to protect people in the village from the loan sharks. So what I did, I started lending money myself, saying that you don't have to go to the loan shark and suffer for all the thing that he imposes on you. You just take the money from me and you're okay. You return the money whenever you can, but you don't have to suffer. So that's the way. I didn't think I'll do many people. I'll just a few people with my money, whatever I can, out of my own pocket. So I started it. It became so popular. Everybody wanted to borrow money from me. And I was very happy. So that was the beginning of the microcredit on. Finally, it became so big to create a bank out of it, call it Grameen Bank or Village Bank. That idea spread all over the world. What I did in the process actually challenged the entire banking system. I raised the question why you deny access to financial services to half the population of the entire world. There is still kind of explaining that it cannot be done. It's impossible to reach out to poor people. It's impossible to get the money back from them. It's no good business. It's not. I said, look, it works. They pay you back. It's no problem with you. Only thing you have to redesign your methodology. That's all. Collateral has to go. You have to go to the person rather than ask the person to come to you, and all those things. And focus on women. That's the best way to change families and so on. So that's what exactly we did. We reached the poorest people in the villages and focused on women. And today we have over 9 million borrowers in Grameen Bank. in every single village of Bangladesh, 80,000 villages, it works. And as a result, almost every single family under the poverty line in Bangladesh are connected with finance, microfinance. So they've changed their own life out of that because if you have access to finance, you are in command of your own life. You're not at the mercy of other people. You're either at the loan shark or to find a job so that somebody can pay you so that you can eat for the day. So you could command your own thing. You have the creative power to do that. And women demonstrated it very well that human beings are entrepreneurs, basically. And that's the point. That's the lesson I learned, that human beings naturally are entrepreneurs. So I tell the young people, don't wait for jobs. Just don't rot as an unemployed person. You have creative capacity, go ahead, use your creative capacity as an entrepreneur. Not only you change yourself, you change the world in the process.
Of course, you won the Nobel Peace Prize, you and Greenback, in 2006. What was that moment like for you?
It's an amazing experience. You never thought such a great thing can happen to you. You're always busy with those little things, all the criticism you have around yourself. Oh, it's a crazy thing to do. It's a wrong thing to do. It's not banking, it's charity, all kinds of things. And you bear through that. You want to prove that it's the right thing to do, it's an important thing to do, is a denial of the right to people to access to financial resources. So now suddenly it's being recognized by such an honor, by such an important award in the whole world, and it just shakes you up, and then you get the prize, and your creation get the prize, and it draws the entire world's attention. A lot more people want to know about it. A lot more people want to copy it in their country. So it's a very thrilling moment for anybody.
Such microfinance institutions are attempting to create localized and sustainable business opportunities for populations, particularly for women and their families in developing countries. Clearly, this is different from the goals of the large international economic organizations that I discussed earlier. Okay, now, on to our last topic of the day. One thing that has drastically changed how business is conducted across the globe is changing technologies. World trade has taken on an entirely new meaning with the introduction of online businesses. Business websites allow us to purchase goods from all over the world with the click of a few buttons. For example, high school prom invitations from our own high school have been purchased from countries like China and India. Before the internet and business websites, never would such purchases have been a possibility. And with these new technologies, we have also seen the way that information is accessed, how it is exchanged, as well as how it is controlled has dramatically changed. With the touch of a few buttons, you have a world of information at your fingertips. Whereas older generations, like my own, had to research topics in a library, and not the one like we have at our high school that has computer station after computer station, but one that is filled with books and other resources. You have available research from a multitude of sources available to you 24/7. That also means, though, that governments and companies have that same information available to them at all times. The exchange of information has advanced dramatically in terms of both modes and speed of transmission. Communication across internet and social media sites enables global communities to connect with the same touch of a button. How many of you have spoken to people in different countries? How many of you have traveled to different countries and shared your experiences via social media posts? This allows for instant communication between peoples across the globe. Unfortunately, the same kind of advancements in technology that have allowed us to buy from businesses in Asia or Europe and have allowed us to communicate with each other around the world have also enabled governments to control the access that we have to that information. China, an authoritarian government, has over 50,000 internet police that patrol what people are writing online. They are said to have the Great Firewall of China because of this internet censorship. Remember, the Chinese government even shut down a variety of social media outlets during the Arab Spring from 2010 to 2013 because they were scared that similar protests and revolutions would occur in their own country. So, we've covered a lot of information regarding world trade, globalization, free market economic organizations, those who are opposed to economic globalization, and opportunities for localized, sustainable economic activities. Hopefully, you recognize the differences between the large free market economic globalization organizations and the smaller, more localized sustainable economic organizations. I hope you have enjoyed this lesson at least as much as one can enjoy a lesson on economics. And now, go rest for a while. Have a great day.